The air in the underground control room was cold, tasting of concrete and recycled oxygen. Clara Jensen stood in the sterile conference room, the weight of a 25-year-old promise pressing down on her. Across the steel table, Victoria Sterling, the impeccably dressed and utterly ruthless CEO of Blackstone Mining, offered a placid, predatory smile. On the large monitor on the wall behind her, 3 digital clocks were counting down, each red number a drop of blood from a dying hope. 22 hours until the data purge, 34 hours until the legal seizure of the land. And somewhere out in the mountains, a community of 42 families was completely unaware that their hidden sanctuary was about to be discovered. "It is a generous offer, Mrs. Jensen," Victoria said, her voice as smooth and cold as the tabletop. $250 million for your silence and the property, enough to ensure the comfort and safety of every person your husband was protecting. Take the deal and they can disappear quietly. Refuse. She let the sentence hang in the air, the threat more powerful for being unspoken. And the legal machine, already in motion, will continue. Everyone loses. Clara looked at the woman who had likely orchestrated her husband's death, at the monstrous corporate logic that saw human lives as an expense to be managed. She thought of Arthur, of his quiet, secret war, and she knew what she had to do. "You've forgotten a third option," Clara said, her voice quiet but ringing with a new, unshakable authority. She reached over and pressed a single, large red button on the conference terminal in front of her. On the wall monitor, a new window popped up. It read, "Dead Man's Switch. Biometric confirmation required." Victoria's calm, confident expression finally shattered, replaced by a flash of pure, undiluted panic as she realized what was about to happen. "What have you done?" she hissed. "My husband's final contingency," Clara replied, placing her thumb on the biometric scanner. "He called it mutually assured destruction. I call it justice." What secrets can a person keep for 25 years of marriage? What promises are so sacred that they are kept even from the one you love the most? Today's story is about Clara Jensen, a woman who, in the wake of her husband's mysterious death, discovers that the quiet, loving man she married was actually the guardian of a secret so profound it could bring down one of the world's most powerful corporations. Left with nothing but a cryptic clue and a promise she must now break, she is thrust into a desperate race against time. This is a story about a woman who must unravel the mysteries of her husband's hidden life to protect his legacy, his community, and the truth he died to defend. If you believe that the greatest love stories are sometimes also the greatest mysteries, then join our community. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and let's explore the secret of Gold Creek. Clara Jensen had made a promise on her wedding day 25 years ago. It was a simple ceremony in a small, sun-drenched chapel nestled in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, the air alive with the scent of wildflowers and the promise of a shared future. Arthur, her Arthur, had looked at her with his piercing green eyes, eyes that seemed to hold the quiet, ancient wisdom of the mountains themselves, and she had said, "I do," each syllable a foundational stone for the life they would build together. The reception was a joyful, chaotic affair, a celebration with the entire small, close-knit community of Gold Creek. But it was later that evening, as the sun began to dip below the jagged peaks, painting the sky in fiery strokes of orange and purple, that he had made his one strange request. He took her to a secluded overlook, a place that felt like the edge of the world, the vast, silent valley stretching out below them. His usual easy smile was gone, replaced by a seriousness she had never seen before. "Clara," he said, his voice low and earnest as he took both of her hands in his, "I need to ask you something important, a matter of faith." He spoke of the old, played-out gold mine that his family had owned for generations, the source of the modest wealth that allowed him to pursue his true passion as a geologist. "I know you know about the mine," he said, "but I need your promise that you will never go to its true hidden location without me, and that you will never reveal its existence to anyone." Clara had laughed then, a light, happy sound. "Is that where you hide your pirate treasure, Arthur?" But he didn't smile back. "I'm serious, Clara. It's the only thing I will ever ask you to simply trust me on. Never go there alone. Never ask about the details. It's complicated." There was a shadow in his eyes, a flicker of a deep, old worry that silenced her questions. It was a strange, unsettling request, a small, locked room in the otherwise open and sunlit house of their love. But she loved him, and so she had agreed. "I promise," she had said, and for 25 years she had kept that promise with a quiet, unwavering devotion. Their life together was a testament to their partnership. Arthur's mineral exploration company had flourished, his brilliant geological mind discovering new deposits across the country. They had built a comfortable life, raised a family, supported each other's dreams. But once a month, the shadow would return. Arthur would pack a small, sturdy backpack with supplies, his expression turning distant and serious. "I have to go check on the mine," he would say, and she would kiss him goodbye, never asking where he was going, what he was doing, or why a defunct gold mine needed such regular, secret attention. She had made peace with the mystery. She had told herself that every marriage has its secrets, and that the strength of their love was more than enough to outweigh the single silent question mark. Until 4 days ago. 4 days ago, Arthur had gone to check on the mine, and he had not come back. The official report called it a tragic accident, a structural collapse in an old, unstable tunnel. The funeral was a blur of concerned faces, of whispered condolences from the same community that had celebrated their wedding. Her younger sister, Susan, was a constant, steady presence, her arm a firm anchor in the swirling sea of Clara's grief. Now, at the small reception after the service, she found herself nodding mechanically as people told stories of Arthur's passion for geology, his brilliant mind, his kind, generous heart. A tall man in a dark, impeccably tailored suit approached her, his face framed by metal-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Jensen," he said, his voice a low, professional murmur. "My name is Patrick O'Connell. I was your husband's attorney. When you feel you are ready, we need to discuss some urgent matters regarding his estate." An alarm bell, faint but clear, went off in the fog of her grief. "Urgent?" she repeated, the word tasting strange. "Yes," he said, his eyes avoiding hers. "Very urgent." Before Clara could ask more, her phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. The message was a single, chilling line. "Leave your husband's past where it belongs, Mrs. Jensen, for your own good." In that moment, Clara felt a new, cold feeling begin to seep into the cracks of her broken heart. The locked room of their marriage was not just a mystery, it was a threat, and the key was now in her hands. The anonymous threat was a jolt of ice water in the warm, suffocating fog of her grief. It transformed her sorrow into a sharp, cold, and unfamiliar anger. Arthur's secret was not just a private matter, it was a danger, and someone out there did not want her looking for answers. That night, the silence of their house felt different. It was no longer a sound of absence, but a sound of secrets. Driven by a new, fierce urgency, she went to his office, not to mourn, but to hunt. She wasn't just a grieving widow anymore, she was a woman with a mission. She bypassed the sentimental objects, the photographs, the mementos of their shared life. She was looking for the hidden places, for the things a man keeps when he is leading a double life. She found it by accident. While searching for insurance papers in his filing cabinet, her hand brushed against a loose floorboard hidden under his desk. Her heart quickened. She pried it open. Beneath it was a small, flat, locked metal box. The key, she realized with a sudden, chilling certainty, had been in plain sight all along. It was a small, ornate silver key on his daily keychain, a key she had always assumed was for some old, forgotten piece of luggage. She retrieved it, her hands trembling. It fit the lock perfectly. Inside the box was not a weapon or a stack of cash. It was a single, leather-bound journal and a small sealed envelope with her name, Clara, written in his familiar, precise hand. She opened the envelope first. Inside was a USB flash drive. Her laptop came to life, the screen's bright light a stark contrast to the dark, shadowed office. She inserted the drive. A single video file appeared. She clicked on it, her heart pounding a frantic, unsteady rhythm. And then he was there. Arthur's face, his kind, beloved face, filled the screen. He looked tired, his expression grave, the usual warm light in his green eyes replaced by a deep, weary sadness. "Clara, my love," he began, his voice a low, recorded whisper that was both a comfort and a torment. "If you are watching this, it means something has happened to me. It means I have failed." He took a deep, shuddering breath. For 25 years, I have kept a promise to my own past, a promise to protect the secret of Gold Creek and the people who depend on it. And now I have to ask you to break your promise to me. You have to go to the hidden mine of Gold Creek. Everything will be explained there, but you have to hurry. There are people who will try to erase what I have built. The coordinates from the journal flashed on the screen behind him. I am so sorry for the secrets, my love. I hope one day you can understand why I couldn't tell you. I love you more than anything in this world. The video ended abruptly, leaving Clara staring at the frozen, pixelated image of her dead husband. Before she could even begin to process the torrent of emotions, her phone vibrated on the desk again. This time, it was a text from Patrick O'Connell, the lawyer. Mrs. Jensen, it read, urgent matters have arisen concerning the Gold Creek property. Blackstone Mining is petitioning for an immediate exploratory operation effective Monday. Please call me at your earliest convenience. It was Friday night. The world, which had already been turned upside down, had just begun to spin. Whatever Arthur had been protecting, a powerful, faceless corporation was about to obliterate it in less than 72 hours. The race had begun. She grabbed the journal and the flash drive. The promise she had made at the Overlook 25 years ago was a ghost, a relic of a life that was now a lie. The promise she had to keep now was the one her dead husband had just made her from beyond the grave. The late-night meeting with Patrick O'Connell felt like stepping into a different world, a world of cold, hard consequences that Arthur had shielded her from for a quarter of a century. His office was a high-tech fortress of glass and steel, overlooking the glittering, indifferent lights of downtown Salt Lake City. Despite the late hour, the lawyer was impeccably dressed, his face a mask of professional concern that did little to hide the nervous tension in his eyes. He gestured for her to sit in a cold leather chair across from his enormous empty desk. Mrs. Jensen, he began, foregoing any real pleasantries, I apologize for the late hour. Under normal circumstances, I would give you time to grieve, but these are not normal circumstances. Clara, clutching Arthur's journal to her chest like a shield, met his gaze. The shock and grief of the past few days had been burned away, replaced by a cold, clear, and unfamiliar resolve. Mr. O'Connell, she said, her voice steady, I have just watched a video of my husband suggesting that his death may not have been an accident. He mentioned protecting people and a company called Blackstone Mining. I need you to tell me everything you know. O'Connell sighed, a long, weary sound. He took off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I was afraid of this, he said. He explained Arthur's unusual legal arrangements for the hidden mine of Gold Creek. The property was held in a blind trust, with Clara as the sole beneficiary, but with a series of almost impossible conditions attached. What kind of conditions? Clara asked, her mind racing. To gain full control of the property and its assets, O'Connell explained, you must personally visit the mine's primary facility within 7 days of his death and enter a specific, unique code into their security system. The code changes daily. Today's code is in this envelope. He slid a sealed white envelope across the vast expanse of the desk. If you do not complete this task by Wednesday at midnight, the trust dictates that the property and all exploratory rights revert to the secondary beneficiary, Blackstone Mining. That makes no sense, Clara said, the absurdity of the situation making her feel lightheaded. Why would Arthur create a loophole for his enemies? It wasn't a loophole, O'Connell corrected gently. It was a tripwire. Arthur knew that Blackstone Mining would move aggressively after his death. The trust was designed to force their hand, to make them reveal their intentions publicly through legal channels, buying you time. He was a cautious man, Clara. He was protecting something. He wanted to ensure that only you could make the final decision about the mine's future. O'Connell hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. There is more. The mine incurs significant monthly expenses. Arthur paid for it all through a series of shell corporations and through a life insurance policy you likely did not know existed. He slid another document across the desk. It was a policy for $80 million. $80 million? Clara whispered, feeling the room tilt slightly. Arthur was a wealthy man, yes, but not a king. He couldn't afford this. He could, O'Connell replied, because the mine was not a liability, it was an asset. I don't know the specifics, Clara, and I learned long ago not to ask. And now, Blackstone Mining is moving with a speed I have never seen. They are not just petitioning for exploratory rights, they are mobilizing drilling teams as we speak. Clara returned home, her mind a whirlwind of impossible numbers and chilling conspiracies. She knew O'Connell was still hiding something, but she also knew she was on her own. She began her own search, a desperate, frantic hunt for clues in the one place Arthur's secrets might still reside, his office. In the back of his walk-in closet, behind a row of his neatly pressed suits, she found it. A small, locked filing cabinet she had never noticed before. The key, she realized with a jolt, had been on his daily keychain all along. A small, simple key distinguished only by a tiny, almost invisible dot of black paint. Inside the cabinet was Arthur's secret war room. There were 3 encrypted satellite phones. There was a stack of geology textbooks, their pages filled with highlighted passages and intricate, hand-drawn tunnel schematics for what looked like a vast underground structure. There was a thick binder labeled Blackstone Mining, filled with newspaper clippings about mining accidents, environmental lawsuits, and corporate malfeasance, all settled quietly out of court. Most disturbing of all was a series of notebooks filled with what looked like raw data, soil analyses, mineral concentrations, reports on remote gold vein detection protocols. Arthur had circled certain entries in red, with question marks and the word vulnerable scrawled in the margins. It was the work of a man hunting for a weakness in his enemy's armor. At 3 a.m., her phone rang. It was her sister, Susan. "Clara, are you okay? I was worried." "I'm okay, Sue," Clara said, her voice strained. "I'm just discovering things about Arthur I never knew." "Is this about his monthly trips to the mine?" Susan asked, her voice cautious. "I always thought that was strange." "It is," Claire replied, a wave of exhaustion and grief washing over her. "He had secrets, Sue, big secrets." "What are you going to do?" Susan asked. Clara looked at the evidence of her husband's secret war spread across the floor. "I'm going to Gold Creek," she said, a new hard certainty in her voice. "Today." "You can't go alone." Susan's voice was a mixture of fear and sisterly command over the phone. "Clara, this is insane. You don't know what you're walking into. That text message proves it." "I know," Clara replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands as she packed a small, practical duffel bag. "But this is something I have to do myself. Arthur asked me to." It was a slight twisting of the truth, but it was the only way to make her sister understand. She was not just following Arthur's instructions. She was chasing the ghost of the man she had been married to for 25 years, trying to understand the secret he had valued more than his own life. "But I do need a favor," Clara added, "a big one. I need a pilot, the best helicopter pilot you can find who isn't afraid to bend a few rules." An hour later, Susan sent a text with a name. "Elena Rodriguez," it read, "ex-military, specializes in mountain terrain. She's waiting for your call. Be careful, Clara. Whatever Arthur was involved in, just please be careful." The small municipal airport on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado, was a chaotic hub of weekend activity, mostly wealthy tourists heading to the ski resorts. Clara, after a sleepless 5-hour flight from Salt Lake City, stood by her single bag, an anonymous, invisible figure in the bustling terminal. "Mrs. Jensen?" A woman in her late 40s, her face weathered by years of high-altitude sun, and her dark eyes holding a weary, familiar sadness, approached her. "Elena Rodriguez, your sister said you needed to get to the hidden mine of Gold Creek." Clara nodded, a silent wave of gratitude washing over her. "Thank you for agreeing to this on such short notice." "Susan mentioned it was urgent," Elena said, her gaze sharp and unapologetically curious. "That's private property, restricted airspace." "It was my husband's, technically," Clara replied. "He passed away 4 days ago." Elena's professional demeanor softened for a fraction of a second. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, then hesitated. "The name Jensen? Was your husband Arthur Jensen, the geologist?" "Yes," Clara said, surprised. "Did you know him?" "Not personally, but..." Elena's gaze swept across the crowded terminal, a flicker of something old and painful in her eyes. "Let's talk in the helicopter." They walked across the tarmac to a sleek blue and white helicopter, its rotors still. Once they were strapped in and the pre-flight checks were complete, Elena spoke again, her voice a low, steady murmur over the initial whine of the engine. My daughter was an investigative journalist, she said abruptly, her eyes fixed on the control panel. Sophia, 3 years ago, she was looking into corporate cover-ups of illegal mining operations. She mentioned a man, a geologist named Jensen, who was secretly helping whistleblowers. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. What happened to her? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Helicopter crash, Elena replied, her voice flat, stripped of all emotion from years of repetition. Tragic mechanical failure, the police said. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the controls. She was getting close to something big, something involving a company called Blackstone Mining. Blackstone Mining, Clara said, the name a piece of cold lead in her stomach. They're trying to take my husband's mine. Elena finally turned to look at her, and in that shared gaze, a silent, powerful, and deeply personal alliance was formed. Then we'd better hurry, Elena said, her voice now a low, dangerous growl. The helicopter lifted off, banking sharply towards the vast, jagged wall of the Rocky Mountains. As they gained altitude, the world below transformed into a breathtaking tapestry of autumn colors. But Clara felt none of its beauty. Her mind was racing, trying to connect the impossible dots between her quiet academic husband, a dead investigative journalist, and the faceless, predatory corporation that now wanted his land. "We're approaching the coordinates," Elena announced, her voice tense in the headset. "Gold Creek is just beyond this ridge." The helicopter crested the mountain ridge, and the valley suddenly opened up before them. Clara gasped. From above, the landscape was a patchwork of scars and raw, untouched beauty. Dozens of old, abandoned exploratory drilling platforms, rusted and silent, dotted the landscape, the ghosts of a long-dead gold rush. It was a rugged, desolate, and seemingly empty place, but nestled deep in the valley, almost perfectly camouflaged by the terrain, was something that did not belong. A single, large, windowless building, its roof covered in solar panels, with a small, clean-swept landing strip beside it. It was not abandoned. "That's it," Clara whispered, her heart pounding. "That's the place." This was no forgotten mine. This was a secret, operational facility, and it had been waiting for them. The helicopter touched down on the clean-swept landing strip with a gentle bump, the only sound in the profound, unnerving silence of the valley. As the rotor spun down, the silence deepened, a heavy, watchful quiet that seemed to emanate from the surrounding peaks and the ghosts of the old drilling platforms. "This doesn't feel abandoned," Elena observed, her hand resting near the controls, her senses on high alert. "The landing strip is clear of debris. Someone has been maintaining it." Clara stepped out of the helicopter, the crisp mountain air a sharp, cold shock in her lungs. She looked at the single, windowless building, its architecture a strange blend of industrial functionality and careful, almost invisible camouflage. It was a place designed to be overlooked, a secret hidden in plain sight. As they started down the gravel path toward the building, a small black surveillance camera mounted on a nearby pole swiveled silently to follow their movement. A moment later, the heavy steel door of the building hissed open. A man in his mid-50s, with graying hair and eyes that were both tired and intensely alert, stepped out. He was not wearing a uniform, but he held himself with the quiet, coiled readiness of a soldier. "Mrs. Jensen?" he asked, his voice calm but wary. "Arthur told us to expect you." He introduced himself as Samuel Miller and led them inside, the steel door hissing shut behind them, sealing them in. The interior was a stark, shocking contrast to the rugged wilderness outside. It was not a mine. It was a high-tech, underground command center, a nerve center humming with the quiet, efficient energy of powerful computers. A handful of other people moved through the space with a quiet, focused purpose, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and unwavering resolve. A younger woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and a headset around her neck approached them. "Welcome to the sanctuary," she said, her voice a mixture of warmth and a deep, underlying sadness. "My name is Maria Chen. We're all that's left of Gold Creek." Over the next hour, in the sterile, functional conference room at the heart of the sanctuary, the full, devastating truth of Arthur's secret life was finally revealed. Samuel and Maria, with the help of a few others who had gathered, told Clara their story. They were the last of the 42 families of whistleblowers, geologists, engineers, and miners who had tried to expose Blackstone Mining's darkest secrets from within. They spoke of illegal dumping of toxic waste, of falsified safety reports that led to fatal accidents, of a pattern of corporate malfeasance that was as profitable as it was deadly. Blackstone Mining, they explained, had not tolerated their dissent. The company had unleashed its full power against them, not with bulldozers, but with a campaign of legal and financial ruin, threats, and harassment that had systematically destroyed their lives. Arthur, they explained, had been their secret benefactor, their protector. He had been a young, idealistic geologist at Blackstone Mining, working alongside a brilliant but ruthless executive named Victoria Sterling. He had witnessed the company's corruption firsthand and had tried to fight it from the inside, but had been silenced and pushed out. He had then dedicated his life and his family's modest fortune to fighting them from the shadows. He had created the Gold Creek Trust as a legal fortress, a way to hold this piece of land as a potential safe haven. His monthly trips to the mine were not for inspection. They were supply runs, strategic planning sessions, a lifeline to his network of whistleblowers scattered across the country. The sanctuary was his ultimate contingency plan, a place where the families could retreat if Blackstone Mining ever discovered their identities and their physical safety was compromised. It was a modern-day underground railroad. The hidden mine of Gold Creek was not a gold mine at all. It was a vault. It was an archive, a fortress designed to protect both the irrefutable evidence against Blackstone Mining and the people who were willing to testify. As Clara listened, the image of her quiet, academic husband was replaced by a man of almost superhuman courage and conviction. Her grief was now tinged with a fierce, profound pride. She finally understood the promise he had extracted from her, the burden of the secrets he had carried alone for so long. Just as Samuel was explaining the complex network of legal and financial firewalls Arthur had built, a piercing, high-pitched alarm suddenly blared through the facility, a sound of pure electronic panic. Red lights began to flash on the walls, bathing the control room in a hellish, pulsing glow. Samuel raced to a nearby monitor, his calm demeanor instantly replaced by a look of grim urgency. "We have a security breach," he announced, his voice tight. On the screens, multiple red warnings were flashing. "It's not just a physical intrusion," Maria shouted from another console. "Our systems are under a full-scale cyber attack. They're in." The alarm howled. Samuel, his face a mask of concentration, initiated a blackout protocol, plunging the facility into a momentary darkness before the backup generators kicked in. "Maria," he commanded, "alert the network. Communication blackout for the next 8 hours." And then 3 separate countdown clocks appeared on the main screen, each a different, terrifying deadline. At the same time, the security camera feed from the main entrance flickered to life. A sleek black SUV had pulled up. A woman in an impeccable business suit stepped out. "It's her," Samuel whispered, his voice filled with a cold, deep hatred. "Victoria Sterling." The intercom crackled. "Mrs. Jensen," the calm, cultured voice of the CEO filled the room. "I know you're in there. I think it's time we had a talk." The control room was a crucible of overlapping crises. The 3 countdown clocks on the main monitor were a relentless, ticking testament to the multi-front war Blackstone Mining had just declared. The first clock, labeled Data Purge, showed just over 22 hours remaining. "It's a security feature Arthur built," Samuel explained, his fingers flying across a keyboard, trying to slow the inevitable. "If the sanctuary is ever compromised, it automatically erases all digital evidence to protect the survivors' identities. They've triggered it remotely. I can delay it, but I can't stop it." The second clock, Legal Seizure, showed 34 hours. "Blackstone Mining got an emergency injunction," Clara said, the words from O'Connell's office now making a terrifying new sense. "Their drilling teams will be here in a day and a half to legally seize and then obliterate this entire facility." The third clock was the most chilling. It was a simple timer, counting down from 1 hour, labeled Perimeter Breach. "They're already moving on the other safe houses," Elena Rodriguez said, her voice a low, grim whisper. "This is a coordinated extermination." It was into this maelstrom of impending doom that they brought Victoria Sterling. She walked into the sterile conference room with the unshakable confidence of a queen entering her court, her presence a stark, tailored contrast to the weary, battle-worn occupants of the sanctuary. Clara, flanked by a stone-faced Elena and a tense, watchful Samuel, sat at the head of the table. "Mrs. Jensen," Victoria began, her voice a smooth, reasonable balm. "First, my condolences. Arthur was a brilliant man." "A brilliant man your company had killed," Clara countered, her voice cold and steady. Victoria gave a small, dismissive smile. "Let's not waste time with unprovable accusations. I am here to offer a solution, a way out." The offer was as generous as it was monstrous. A $250 million foundation in Arthur's name. Lifelong, comfortable, and untraceable financial support for every one of the 42 surviving families. New identities, new lives, anywhere in the world. In exchange, Victoria concluded, for the evidence, the mine, and your complete and total silence, forever. She leaned forward, her voice a persuasive, almost hypnotic whisper. "Arthur was a romantic, Mrs. Jensen. He built this elaborate, unsustainable network out of a misplaced sense of loyalty. I am offering you a pragmatic, humane resolution. Take the deal, and everyone lives a comfortable, safe life. Refuse, and the machine already in motion will continue. The evidence will be erased, the mine will be seized, and the people your husband died to protect will be hunted, one by one, until they make a mistake, as they inevitably will." Clara looked at the woman, at the perfect corporate articulation of evil. She thought of Arthur, of his quiet 25-year war, and she knew what he would do. She knew what she had to do. "You've forgotten a third option," Clara said, her voice quiet but ringing with a new, unshakable authority. She reached over and pressed a single, large, red button on the conference terminal in front of her. On the wall monitor, a new window popped up. It read, "Dead man switch, biometric confirmation required." Victoria's calm, confident expression finally shattered, replaced by a flash of pure, undiluted panic as she realized what was about to happen. "What have you done?" she hissed. "My husband's final contingency," Clara replied, placing her thumb on the biometric scanner. "He called it mutually assured destruction. I call it justice." The system activated. The dead man switch, as Samuel had explained, was not a data bomb. It was a digital Paul Revere. A single encrypted signal was sent to a secure network Arthur had built over decades, a network of 42 investigative journalists, international law enforcement agencies, and environmental watchdogs, each one a person he had vetted and trusted. The signal unlocked a secure server, simultaneously releasing every piece of evidence Arthur had ever collected: the geological data, the financial records, the witness testimonies, the details of Sofia Rodriguez's murder, to all of them at once. The aftermath was a corporate apocalypse. Blackstone Mining, buried under an avalanche of irrefutable evidence from 42 different directions, did not just stumble, it collapsed. Victoria Sterling and her entire board were arrested. The company's stock flatlined. The legal seizure of the mine was halted, the data purge was averted, and the survivors were, for the first time in years, truly safe. The final scene is a year later. Clara, Elena, and Samuel are standing on the overlook where Arthur had first asked Clara to make her promise. The valley below is no longer a landscape of abandoned platforms. It is the home of the Gold Creek Justice Foundation, a thriving center for corporate accountability and environmental research, funded by the massive settlement from Blackstone Mining's assets. It is run by the survivors, the 42 families who are no longer hiding, but are now using their experiences to fight for others. Clara has not just protected her husband's legacy, she has transformed it from a secret war into a public beacon of hope. She found his secret, and instead of keeping it, she gave it to the world. She looks out at the valley, a new beginning blooming from the ashes of the old, and for the first time since Arthur's death, she feels a profound, lasting peace. She had finally fully understood the promise he had asked her to keep. It was not a promise to stay away. It was a promise to be brave enough, when the time came, to fight.